Hi, my name is Virginia Drake, and I had a near-death experience that changed my life. But I have to go all the way back when I was born to my mother, and I was her seventh miscarriage in 1951. And that did change things right then. And I made a lot of decisions, obviously, to come back. So also I've had two near-death experiences in drowning. I have had two strokes, two heart attacks. And in 2019, I was completely paralyzed from the neck down. And then I got to go into an MRI and it brought me back. But the main NDE that really affected me is in 1998, I had a massive heart attack at the age of 46. But the week before that heart attack, I was already pre-prepared that there was something coming on. And I went into my house and I was sitting in my den, and this man was on the television and he said, "Don't get a heart transplant." Now, I was just watching, I just walked in and saw the TV and I thought, oh, he must have, he's had a bad time. He looked horrible. He literally looked horrible. At 91, the oxygen, but he kept saying it, "Don't get a heart transplant." So I'm just listening and I'm thinking, wow, is he talking to me? And finally, I looked around, he kept saying it, and finally he came really close to the screen and said, "Don't get a heart transplant." And I said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to get one." In fact, I raised my hand and said, "I will not get a heart transplant. I'm 46 years old. I walk 4 miles a day. I am healthy. I have a farm. I work out the farm. I have a job. I am a teacher." So I didn't think anything about it. Well, the next week I was looking at a heart transplant. When I came in June the 2nd, 1998, that was my first day of summer break. And I was in my classroom with my younger son, and everybody, they were taking the bulletin boards down and everything. But I had this horrible, horrible pain in my chest. And prior to that, I had had a acid reflux experience while I was in school, and the ambulance had to come and get me. And we thought I was having a heart attack then, but it was not. It was acid reflux. So in June 2nd, that I was in my classroom that day, I thought, well, this is acid reflux. But it kept so different. It was hot. Oh, it hurt. It was painful. In fact, it looked like an anaconda was wrapped in my chest and an elephant sitting on it, and I couldn't breathe very well. But the one that really got me when I was in that classroom is I was bent down to pick something up in the trash can that I dropped, and I saw all of this sweat coming off my face. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is this? And I felt really odd then. And so I rushed down to the stairs and I thought, there's something wrong. I need to look at that. So I went and got some Coke and I thought, well, I need to check it and maybe I'll burp or whatever it was. But it kept going on. And so I finally went down to the secretary's desk and I said, "I think I'm going to have to leave today." And she said, "Well, leave your car. Why don't we call your son?" And so that's what we did. And I went on into the farm. And when I got in, immediately I thought maybe I have hurt my shoulder, and I had a hot tub room. So I went in to get into the hot tub and put my leg in the hot tub, and I felt pain, excruciating pain, even worse. In fact, I even vomited. So I went out, and because it was, it was a farm, I just kind of thought, ooh, and I vomited and I thought, oh my gosh, what is this going on? And then I walked on up steps, to the steps, to the third floor, and I was laying there and it was really odd. My cats started looking at me very strange. And I had two gray cats that were called Ike and Tina. And I was sitting there and they were just looking at me, like staring at me. And I thought, what's wrong? Then this very small voice said, "You need to go into the bathroom and look at yourself." I thought, wonder what's going on. So when I walked in and got into the mirror, I realized, oh my gosh, what is going? And I was ashen gray, and my eyes were already coming back. And I said, "I'm done." And I rushed down to the next floor. And my husband at the time, he was talking to my doctor, and we thought it was acid reflux. And I said, "No, I need to go to the ER." And he said, "No, I got I said, "No, I need to go to the ER." And we were about 15 minutes out. So he jumped in the car with me. He's still thinking, and so am I, acid reflux. So when I got there, he pulled up to the ER and he said, I'll park, go on and get out and tell the receptionist. So I walked in and the receptionist's eyes got really big and she said, we're going to put you in the back right now. And I thought, oh, well, she recognized me. She must be know that I'm a good teacher or whatever, because it's a small town and pretty much we all know each other. But I went in and there was a dear friend there that was I went to high school with, and her name was Punky Brandenburg. And but it was genetic, Janet. But Janet said, "What is going on?" Because she was with me when I had acid reflux 3 weeks prior. And I said, "Well," I said, "I think I'm having acid reflux." So gave me this medicine, what they did the last time, and this time it went straight down and it went straight out and ejected out to the wall. And they laid me back real fast. And this is not acid reflux. This is a heart attack. And I remember immediately I went out of my body. I could see part of my body, me over in the wall, in the corner. And I was seeing myself on the table. And I thought, what's going on? I did not understand what was going on. But there was a lot of rushing. And then I remember I must have come back in, and I remember I was looking through my solar plexus and I kept thinking, there is no way I can see through my solar plexus. Why I'm not seeing my eyes. And so remember everything is really then starting going in slow motion. And since that, I have learned a lot about my near-death experience and I really looked at a lot of things. Everything goes really slow-mo, and you're getting ready to go into a different dimension, a different thought process. And I remember everything was real slow, and I thought, what's going on? Well, they were all trying to figure out what to do. And now I'm thinking I'm in there for maybe just an hour or two, but I realized I was almost there for 6 or 7 hours. And I did not, because they were trying to keep me settled and balanced to get ready to go to another hospital. So when the ambulance did come, I remember they were picking me up and everything. I'm still in and out, in and out. I had not died at that time, but I was really not together about it. But I remember all of a sudden when they put me in the ambulance, I remember saying that I heard the gentleman that was putting me in, he said, she's not going to make it. And I thought, how can he say that? There's no way he should be able to say that. You can't say that to people. But I remember the next thing I know, I was gone. I was gone. And now the lights went out. I was riding next to the ambulance and I kept thinking, this cannot be possible. How can I be? And then I looked into the ambulance, looking in, and I could see myself laying on the stretcher. And I thought, is that me? I looked horrible. I remember thinking, oh my God, I look so bad. What's wrong with me? And I was assuming then I was in the process of dying right then. And I kind of went on out and I kept thinking, I'm falling through the ambulance. And I thought, that's not normal. I can't be doing that. And the next thing I know, I get pulled up from like a ponytail at the top of my head, and I end up landing into a room that has 12 souls in there, and they were all in white robes, and they had golden rope around them. And but I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. I mean, I could see them, but you couldn't see their faces or anything. And I would say something, where am I? And I remember I looked down and I didn't have my hands or my body at all. But I could feel myself in the chair. I could feel my body being in a chair, but I wasn't physically there. And I thought, how does this work? And they would laugh at me and they go, and I thought, who is that? Well, later, after I realized and did some more study on the NDEs, I realized that was the Council of 12. And they are the elders. I didn't get to talk to them much because the next thing I did is I went out, and the next thing I'm in planets. I was looking at stars. I saw the novas. I mean, and I kept thinking, you can't be doing this. This is not possible. And I have learned through many other NDEs, we all kind of go that because we don't know where we are in it. So I remember then the next thing I came back into my body. And I thought, how could that be possible? Now, I was in my body, but I obviously wasn't dead at that time, but I was over here. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life because it throws you out terribly because you don't have any understanding. As a logical person, you think, am I dead? Am I not dead? What's going on? And I kept coming in and out. And so the next thing I'm looking at another hospital. And the next thing we get pulled when I got there at the ambulance, they pulled me out on the stretcher and it brought me back into my body again. And I kept thinking, am I dead? Am I not dead? But I could see everything and people could talk. And I was there and there was three women there and they were the women that I worked with. And they were there before my family was because my husband had to go get our children, our two boys. And I remember the people that were talking to me, the three women, they were asking me, but I couldn't hardly talk because it hurt so bad. That was the worst pain because you can't breathe either. And I realized when I was looking at them, I realized that might be the last three people I'll ever talk to or ever see again because what was getting ready to happen to me. And the next thing I know, the nurses have come in and they're glubbing up and they're telling me that, you've had a heart attack. And I thought, is that what it is? Why wasn't it asked? And, I had a lot of questions, but they were very kind. And then the man that came in, my cardiologist came in and I did not know him. He did not know me. I'm not his patient. And he started talking to me and he said, well, you're going to have a stent and we're going to look at everything very consciously to see what's going on. And I thought, okay, but I remember he had in his pocket, he had a pencil or a pen and it fell and I saw it fall out and go down to the floor. But the next thing I know, I'm no longer in my body. I'm watching that I saw him with that pen dropped over there, but also I saw on his feet was Kohan shoes, which is about $350. And I used to wear Kohan shoes. So I thought, oh my gosh, he doesn't even have these little booties on. And I thought, how in the world can I even see this? If I'm up here, how can I be here? So I'm really confused about a lot of things. And the next thing I know, they gave me enough to where I was kind of dazed, but I still wasn't aware what was really going on at all. I was confused. And I think a lot of NDEs go into a confused state because we never experienced anything like that. Or I had never at that time that I thought. So I thought, okay. And then they were talking about the stent. And he said, we're going to, he ran the lead into my growing to come up and do my heart. And he said, you just need to relax and everything. And I thought, no, I want to see it. And I made him turn the screen around because I said, I'm a teacher and I want my students to recognize this. And they said, you want to watch this? I said, yeah. Well, I remember when it went through the growing, I could feel the vibration. And when it hit through my chest, it was like, oh, I could breathe again. I thought, well, I can go home. But no, I wasn't going home. So when I got into the next room and the procedure went very well, and my doctor did come in and he said, you've had some really bad damage in your heart. And he said, you look like to me, you're going to have a heart transplant. And I went, which I'd already seen that the week before, and I refused. And so he was very upset. He said, well, if you don't take the heart transplant, he said, you have 6 months to live. And that took me into a whole different world totally because I thought, I'm 46 years old. I'm not going to get to see my kids grow up. I'm not going to be with my friends. It took me back. And that night, I don't know what to do. And so I started calling people. And I thought, if I've only got 6 months to live, I want to make sure I clear everything up before I cross over. And I did. I called people that I thought I'd hurt. And funny thing is, they didn't even remember some of the stuff. And this is what I've learned in all of this is that a lot of times you think these things inside that you've hurt somebody or you've done something bad, And if you ask somebody or you want to apologize to them, sometimes I don't even remember it because it was very small details for them, but it was a lot for me to learn how to love myself first. And so after that, I remember, well, this is it. I'll be on oxygen pretty much the rest. And the only reason why I knew that is my mother had oxygen and she had bad lungs. And so she couldn't go to the, yard anymore. And I felt so bad. I thought I'm going to have to see this. And my mother was almost 75. So I thought, gosh, I'm just beginning. Um, I wasn't angry. I was really confused. So the next day, I remember the nurses, because I was in the ICU, and the nurses were going to come in and talk to me about, I need to really start, be careful, don't get up, because I had sandbag on there and you could bleed to death. They were telling me that the night before as well. But I also knew there was a lady in that room with me, and I think she was in her late 70s and she was in the process of dying. And that I didn't meet her, I didn't hear anything from her until that night about 3 o'clock in the morning. There was a man that came in there and he sounded just like the National Geographic narrator or the Learning Channel. And as a teacher, I would recognize that immediately. Now he's talking to her, but yet I'm having this profound experience with angels coming in. But the most one that really amazed me was, first, it started out with a little bitty light in the corner of my hospital room. It kept getting bigger. And I thought, man, this is bad drug. I mean, am I dying? What's going on? And the next thing I know, it was Archangel Michael, and he went all the way up into the 6th floor. Now, at that time, I was on the 3rd floor because I remember them saying, we're going to take you to the 3rd floor. That's the ICU. And we'll get you settled in, but you have to be very conscious. And I was listening to that. But also I was listening to the man next to me talking to his, assumed it was her son, and that he was telling her something. And so I listened to that, but I'm also having these profound experiences with Archangel Michael on the 6th floor. And he came down and looked at me. He said, time to wake up. And I went, "Huh?" And I thought, oh my gosh, he is really, I thought they were supposed to be nice. He's an archangel. I thought, I've been always told angels were nice. Well, that was very firm, very real. And he said, wake up. And then after he said that, he kind of moved back out and he was outstanding outside of the hospital. I thought that can't be true. So I'm having the experience with this man over here with his, I assumed it's his mother. I'm having this. And the next thing I know, I have a whole lot of angels that have come in and they're going around my bed. There's no way they were coming through the wall, coming back around, and they were circling me, but they were talking to me, but I couldn't hear a thing they were saying. They were just saying, and I thought, what are they saying? So, family, I kept thinking, I am having a bad experience here, bad drugs, whatever. I'm having something I shouldn't be having, but I couldn't touch the button to tell the nurses. So I thought, I'm going to die. I think that's what's going to happen to me. So I heard this man, all of a sudden he left, but this was also going on. And then all of a sudden, everything stopped. Everything stopped. And it just kind of settled down. And I thought, what is going on? So the next day, the nurse came in and she was telling me that, I said, did she die? And she said, yes. And I said, was that her son? And she said, yes. And I said, he sounded just like the National Geographic narrator. She said, it was him. He just came in from California to say goodbye to his mother. I went, oh my God, so it really happened. I knew then my Holy Spirit was really showing me that was going on, reality that I knew. And this is a reality that I was going through. And that's the only way I would have even identified what was really going on with me, by recognizing the narrator of the, National Geographic. So that day, I guess that early that morning, I was just stunned. I thought, I'm not going to see my children again. And all of a sudden, these two nurses came in and they're very jovial and they're laughing. And I thought, that is really funny that they're laughing and I'm dying. So they got in and they said, we're going to take you up to the treadmill. And I thought you all said I was going to, no, I can't move. They said, well, it's okay. And I said, you're going to kill me? And as they were talking, oxygen tank fell on my back. And I thought, they're going to kill me. And they kind of laughed. They said, we're so sorry. And I said, okay. And then they said, we're going to wheel you up to the next floor and they're going to put you on the treadmill and we'll find out how it is. But they kept saying, you can do this. You can do this. And they had been watching me and monitoring me all night long. So I thought, what are they saying? And so when we got into the elevator, there was another nurse in there. And these two nurses was talking to the other nurse. And that nurse turned around and said, would you touch me? And I thought, why would you want me to touch you? And she said, just please touch me. And I said, well, I'm done. Why would you want a dead woman touch? Well, it didn't matter. I went on and touched her, and she just looked at the other two nurses, and they all but there was a conversation that was going on that I was not privileged to that conversation. I got out of the elevator. The nurses said, go in there and really do it. And they kept putting their thumbs up like that, do it. So when I walked in, there was my cardiologist. He had his Kohan shoes. He looked very dressed, very nice. He said, do everything you can, get her ready for the treadmill. And I thought, they're going to kill me. They're really going to kill me. So I got on. I was very scared. I'll be honest. I was terrified. Through this whole process, I've been very afraid. And when the nurses kept going, do it, do it. And so I was very gingerly doing it because I was afraid I was going to have another heart attack and I would die right then in front of them. So I started walking a little bit and he said, turn it up a little bit more. And I thought, oh my gosh. And the next thing, but I never had any pain anymore. It was like, wow, maybe I'm going to be okay. And so I kept, and then he said, turn it on. And I mean, I started really, because I used to walk 4 miles a day and go up and down stairs because when I was a teacher, I was up and down all the time. So it was very common for me to be doing this and running there. And I felt great. And so finally he looked at the nurses and said, take her off and meet me down and tell her or take her down to her room. And I thought, oh, cool. I must have passed the test. And so when we got in, there were 5 men in there. There was my husband, there was the hospital manager, and then there was my cardiologist, there was my hometown doctor that had just 3 weeks, had just gone over a physical with me. And he said, you'll live to be 100, laughing and all. And then there was another man in there, and they were all discussing me. And I'm sitting over there in the bed. And then all of a sudden, the cardiologist starts talking. He said, what she had is a shocked heart. And see, he had already told me that I only had 6 months to live. So he's trying to explain to all of these people, especially the manager of the hospital, what went on. He said, well, basically, and he didn't say miraculously healed. He said, this is what it happens. Sometimes the heart comes back. And I remember him saying that. I laid out of the bed and I said, I call it miraculous healing. And then I laid back down and said, I don't want to have another heart attack. So that was amazing right there. But when you look at all of this, being pre-told not to have a heart attack or a heart transplant, I realized I'd had a very miraculous moment being told the week before not to get the heart transplant, because if I'd gotten the heart transplant, you would have never met me. I would never gone through it, because that was quite different in 1998. So when I got ready to go home, there was a nurse that came in and she said, don't come back. She said, you've given us all hope. Because one thing I recognized, those nurses were very much the age of me. And they were horrified because I was very young. I was very healthy, be having a massive heart attack that way. And so they said, just don't come back. You've given us so much hope. So I said, okay. Well, then another nurse came in and said, I'm going to ride you down to your car. And as I was riding down, she kept saying the same thing. We watched something that we never thought we would witness. And I thought, wow, is this a big deal? But I'm still very unclear of a lot of the things that have happened during that 24 hours. And so I just kept thinking, what are they talking about? So when I got down to get my car, that nurse turned around and put her arms around me and she said, please, you've given us so hope and so much hope. The whole hospital realized it. And I thought, really? And she said, so don't come back. And I started laughing. I said, don't worry, I'm not coming back. Well, when I got in the car with my husband, I had had a whole different change. I didn't want to talk. That was the third day of my summer break. And I stayed in there for 3 months, just pondering what had happened to me and really looking at what there, I was okay. I mean, I did have 9 pills, and they told me that I would have, I could survive, but they were treating me like I had already, died. But, I had such a severe heart attack. And I thought, they told me I was fine. And so 3 weeks went along, and I realized I couldn't hardly take those pills. And I'm not telling anybody, I just couldn't take it. And I thought, that was a miraculous healing. But I still could not wrap my mind out what had happened to me. So, really, what that whole event helped me is to see God does exist, that I have now realized that there is a true Holy Spirit. There are angels. There are things that are happening way beyond that we didn't even know. And then, because of the teacher that I am, I did go back to school in, the very first new year. But in October of that year, I was told you need to quit your job. And I did. I had to stay in, but I told them I didn't want to come back. So I did finish out that last year, but I had profound experiences with that. I could hear everything. I was always intuitive. And as you remember, I had already had a near death experience when I was 7 months old in my mother's womb. And I had also remembered people. I was always intuitive. I could talk to things when I was a little girl. My mother was very much like me, but was scared to death of it. And she told me, don't tell people ever that you see dead people, because I saw my father after he died when I was 16. And my mother didn't want me to ever tell anybody because she's afraid that they would take me out in a straitjacket. And I thought I had to witness that, because they did take my father out in a straitjacket when he finally went to the hospital. He had a brain tumor and it was cancerous. So I was really in shock, but I'm still looking at it as a wisdom thing. I thought, what in the heck happened here? So I really took those 3 months in my summer break to really, really look at it and really process it. And I thought, I died, but yet I'm alive. And I thought, how does that work? And I started really practicing. And like I said, I quit my job in 2000 as a teacher. And I went home and I truly practiced what I was teaching for me. I had a lot of visitation, and one of them was Jesus. And Jesus came and stayed with me for 18 months. During that time, without being in a job, nobody was there in my house. My husband has gone to his job. The boys went to school, and I played. And Jesus stayed with me for, like I said, 18 months. And he taught me. He taught me a lot of things about, that life is really this way. And you have such opportunities. And he told me, he said, you need to start opening your eyes and really seeing the truth here. There is two worlds. There's the world of man and there's a world of God. And he said, you need to learn those two worlds are real. And you've been living in the world of man, and that's the illusion. I want you to come into the reality of really what it was. That's when I could really see trees and I could really talk to the grass. And I laid down one day, and I had a farm, like I said, we had a pond, and I went and took a quilt over by the pond, and I sat down, and all of a sudden I started talking to the earth. And I could see that I could tap everything and it would just, wave. And I thought, I'm a scientist. I have a background in science. So I was thinking, this can't happen. But it was happening all the time. I remember the flowers started talking to me, and I could hear them singing things. And I thought, this can't be real. Yes, it is real, because that is really what's going on. We have been so programmed to think it this way that we have forgotten what we really are. We are spiritual beings in light. And we, our physical bodies, the physical part of us, our flesh, holds our soul and our light. And Jesus taught me that. He said, all we are is light. And I remember the day he came in, the first time he came in to tell me, I said, how do people see you? He said, as they have been trained to know me. And I thought, well, only reason why I recognized him is because I was a Catholic educator, and his face was on my bulletin board, and it said, "Smile, Jesus loves you." And I had the first smiling Jesus, and the nun had bought that from me because I wanted him to be with the children and smiling. And he looked exactly what I'd seen in my bulletin board. So then I understand. So you're not going to ever know Jesus, but the way you've been told Jesus was. So it doesn't matter who you are. And if you're a Buddha, you're going to go that way because that's going to be your belief system. And you might not see Jesus, you might see Buddha, you might see something else, but it's because we've been programmed to see it that way, we would not recognize it any other way. So what I was seeing all the time was he was teaching me there's so many more things going on here and you're missing it. And so I saw things in my mirror. I mean, the first time I started doing mirror work, there was a Chinese man that came into the mirror, and I'm looking at him, and it scared me so bad. I'd never seen anything like that. So I'm having profound experiences for the first year that I had been back, retired basically, and having a blast. And it was like every day something new was going to come in, something was going to train me, something was going to tell me. And I remember God would just the amazing bright light. And so was Jesus. Jesus just one day just showed me, he said, we're just light. And I thought, how can that be? Well, and you just have a lot of confusion at the beginning, but then you become very good. For 5 years, I stayed at my family and I started then telling people about it. And, amazing. A lot of people didn't understand it at all. They thought I was really crazy. In fact, my family really wanted to have me committed because they thought because of the heart attack, I did not have enough oxygen in the brain. So they thought I was really demential. I was losing it. And I look back at that now and it's so funny because it hurt me, but I stayed in there for 5 years and I learned everything about me and my family and what was really the illusion was the American dream that I had been programmed into. And I was in the American dream. I had a farm, I had pool in the backyard, I had good cars. I mean, I was on the top. But when I woke up from that near-death experience, it didn't have the same flash in it. It was empty. And I thought, this is not what it's supposed to be here. And so I started really taking a very good take, watching everything, becoming very aware. Awareness is the most important thing because you really need to start becoming aware of what is really going on around you because we don't even see half the stuff that's going on. And yes, I could see ghosts, I could see things, I could see or which I'd always been able to do that, but I didn't know that. And I practiced and I started practicing. And then I started my own business and it was Revisions. That's my company's name. And it's to review it again through a different state of mind because that's what exactly was told me in the hospital. You're in a different state of mind. And that's what it is. It's strictly by state of mind. You don't have to always die. People say, do I have to die to do this? Absolutely not. You have to do good meditation. You got to go in and you got to learn how to be aware, but also to be still. Stillness is the most important thing, to still your mind, to empty your mind, because we have too much distractions. So you would never even see half the stuff I could see. And things. And also, when you cross over, things don't look the same as it is here because the colors are more bright, they're bright, they're more alive, they're very full. You just can feel noises differently and everything is going on. So it just really, you go like, I'm alive. And that's the first time I've ever felt truly alive. And I thought, is this what I've been feeling? I'm not alive. And then when I wake up and after I've had a near death experience, I'm alive. So I thought, wow, this is so different than what I've been told, and then I was always scared. I was always so afraid of everything. I was trained in fear. My mother was terrifying me all the time because I was her seventh miscarriage. They told her, if you have miscarried this baby, you'll never be able to have any more children, because my mother had tried to have six babies before me. Somehow I made it. And I remember my doctor said, I'd give a plug nickel for you. And now, a long time ago, that was when they were building houses around us in the 50s, that they would take those little nickel things for the electric box and we would play with them. And I remember thinking, wow, that must have been a big deal. Never thought anything about it. However, I drowned twice. I was at the age of 11 and 16 when that happened. And it was like, wow, now when you're looking, I didn't even know that was a near death experience because it didn't last very long. I went 11, I was in a lifeguard course to be a lifeguard at the age of 11, and which was, I was young, but they were going to let me do it because I was a really good swimmer. But what happened is we had our bathing suits in that time in the 60s, that I got caught up in her bathing suit and we were playing like we were struggling victims, but I was really struggling. And I remember I thought, this is it. I'm going to die right here, because I just kind of collapsed and went down. And they picked me, got me up. And our instructor said, she got me up, she laid me down, and I felt everything in that. But I remember when she finally got me up to where I could see, and she said, I raised up and I said, I went to the pearly gates. I went to the pearly gates. And it was the mother of pearl. That's what it looked like. And it was a gate that came in like this. And I was getting ready to walk in, and it's closed real quick. And it said, not your time. And I went back. And that's when I came back into my body, when they got me back up. And I remember I had a friend there, and I told her, and she said, we didn't even pay attention to you. She said, we just thought, you had an experience that because you almost drowned, that, and I thought, no, I was there. So then the next time I was 16 and I skipped school with my cousin, and they threw a wool blanket in the water over me, and I went straight down to the bottom of the river, the Kentucky River. But I must have been in there only a few seconds, because they were trying to find me. And I remember when I was going down, and the wool blanket was holding me back. And it was like, I'm going to die. And I thought, I can't get out. I can't get out. And I was a good swimmer. And all of a sudden, I just kind of relaxed. And I said, well, this is it. But my mother is going to be so mad at my cousin, because now I'm died and I'm going to leave. And, he's got to face the music with my mother. And then the next thing I know, this was like the blanket over me. All of a sudden, lights came up underneath my body, and it was like it lifted the blanket off of me. And I thought, wow, but I could see the surface, but I knew it was on the bottom of the river. There's no way. And then all of a sudden, this little voice said, we're going to push you up. So just fall, go up real fast. And they pushed me up, and I came right back. And my cousin said, where have you been? We've been trying to find you. And I thought, have I been there for months or something, or, hours? I didn't know. She said, well, we've been looking for you. And I thought, wow, I had no idea. So that is exactly, you in and out. So that was the wildest experience. Then the next one is that, I've had two strokes. And then those strokes, if I had not had those and not have had the experiences with the heart attack and understanding that I'd had others, I knew how to get through that stroke, and I did not go to the hospital. The stroke was very massive. It took me 9 months to be able to speak, but spirit taught me how to unravel all of that and to heal myself. And I did. And I've done it twice on that. Now, I'm telling you, people don't do that because you've got to have an understanding with it. But it gave me an opportunity because the Holy Spirit talked to me about the entire time with that stroke. And took me 9 months to be able to speak. And I started speaking. And I'm dyslexic. And I think that helps a lot when I was dyslexic, because I knew how to reverse. And reversing everything and seeing things from a whole different state of mind is an incredible opportunity to learn that it really is like that. So this is a lot of things. And then I had, and that one in 2019 when I had been paralyzed, I went into the MRI and I met the guy who founded the MRI at a wedding reception about 40 years prior. And I knew how to do that because I wrote everything he told me. So when I got into that MRI, I came back in and it had light. And they saw me go into light and I showed them. And I was there for about 3 days, completely healed, completely healed. So I know for a fact going over and coming back, and I can come in and out, and I've done that a lot. But the near death experience that really taught me was the one in 1998. It made me see that I'd had others and that I had profound experiences, and that I was very, very grateful for all the experiences. In fact, I was asked not too long ago, do you ever regret what you've gone through? And I said, absolutely not. I would never have learned this. I would never have been able to even witness any of this. And this is why I am a motivational speaker. I've been doing it now for 25 years, talking about this, trying to explain to people the importance of awareness. It's importance about emptying your mind and seeing, being in the now, the moment, because there is no past and there is no future. It is right now. And that made me, train me in a way to see things without fear, because fear is just false. And we've been feared, it's been going through us forever. This world is full of fear. And I think we went through it 3 years, when we were into the pandemic. People were terrified. Now, I was never, ever afraid of that at all, because I'm not afraid to die. Once you've gone through it, you don't want to, you just don't feel death. And I was terrified of death many, many, many years, because watching my father and all. No, I was never, ever afraid ever again. And I think that was the blessings of my near death experience, that there was no more fear. And the thing I learned the most in this NDE is this: be true to yourself, be honest with yourself. And when I say be honest, I mean totally honest. Get out of that fear, get out of everything, and really start telling the people the truth. Tell people how much you love them, because you never know. And I literally had here today, gone tomorrow. So you never know when it's going to happen. So when you walk out that door, make sure you tell everyone you love them. When you walk back in, tell them you love them, and really honor that love, because there's only two emotions in this plane, and that's fear or love. And fear, I don't want to have ever again, because it's paralyzing. And I don't want to be paralyzed like that. But I have had a wonderful experience for the last, for now, 26 years by doing these NDE interviews. It's giving me an opportunity to really tell my truth and tell everyone out there that you have an opportunity to change your life just like that. All you have to do is get grounded, get still, get aware, and then allow the Holy Spirit, or whatever you see as God or Buddha, whatever your belief is, it's there. It lies within us. We have that within. And if you will nurture that and really love that and love yourself, love thyself like you've never loved, be honorable, because every time you look in the mirror and you say something mean, your body feels that. Your soul feels that. So be conscious about what you're saying, because that does make a difference on what you're doing, what you're feeling. I wasn't always a nice person, so I had to really look at all of this. I had two boys and I had a great life, but now I gave that up, because this is the life, the real truth, the peace, the love, the people that you meet and that you're talking. And I mean, I've got to work with clients all over the world. I would never have thought in 1,000 years that I would ever be able to talk like this, be like this, and have this kind of experience. And I'm blessed by it, always blessed by it. So if anything I could give anyone, it's be true to yourself. Like I said, be honest, and be honest with others, because the sadness is that we do not want to hurt anybody, but in the long run, you end up hurting them anyway by not telling the truth. And since you love people and you love them, tell them the truth, because once they find out that you haven't told them the truth, it hurts them. It hurts me. And I've been hurt really bad by people not being honest with me. Trying to, and they weren't being mean to me. They just didn't want to tell me the truth because they didn't want to hurt my feelings. Well, it hurt my feelings most because I trusted them. I trusted them to be honest. I trusted them to tell me the truth, and they didn't. And that made me have a very different take on people that I cared about. And so I'm not always the kindest, loving, it might not look loving to me, but when I'm working with clients, I have to tell them the truth. And if I don't tell them the truth, then I haven't really honored their souls. And the flesh is going to go, but the soul is eternal and it will go on and on and on. So you want to make sure you clear it very clear that everybody has an opportunity to change their mind in seconds. So don't miss anything. You have such an opportunity. And this world it's an enjoyable world, and it has no fear for me. The only thing that I might get afraid of is when people start getting in fear and then they start acting really strange. And so I always have to say, you need to ground. You need to breathe. And breath work is the best thing you can do, because breath is really the spirit. It really brings it in and you can feel it. You'll feel the calm. So the more you can really give yourself that time just to breathe. I mean, I'm not talking about meditation. Breath work is a meditation in many, many ways. And I remember I meditated for 5 years, almost 16 and 17 hours a day. It was the most amazing things because you can come in and out, and I can go in and out. And it's out of body experiences. I think a lot of people have had out of body experiences. They just are not aware, because when you're in daydreaming and you're right there, but your mind is not there, it's another place, but your body's there. And the reason why I know that is being a teacher, I used to, on the spring days, would come in and the kids, and we were all tired of winter. I would hear all the kindergartners to go up in my class. They'll be out in the parking way, or the area that they would play in. And my sixth graders would hear them talking or playing. And the next thing I know, it looked like all my students were there in body, but they weren't there in their minds. So I used to have to say, come back to me, never even knowing that's what I was saying. Come back to me, because that is a daydream, but it also, their mind was in the playground, but their body was in my classroom. And I see it all the time. So please take time to give a choice and you have a choice, fear or love, but take time to really find out who you are within, because that's the most important thing you ever came down here. That's your purpose, is to truly find you. And if you find you, you'll find the Spirit of God within you.